back to another episode of the Jesus Cartel. With me, as usual, Mr. Clay Russell. Clay, how are you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great, Andrew. Thanks for asking.
Yep. We should have, and if I would have thought about it, I would have brought you a confetti cannon.
Okay.
Today is a confetti cannon worthy moment.
Right.
The Mangum Dragons are the 2A, right? 2A Louisiana High School Athletic Association baseball state champions.
Amen.
Congratulations to those boys.
Yeah, so they call it Division 4, so it's 1A and 2A combined.
Confetti cannon moment right now.
Yeah.
And then this would have been it.
To be honest with you, I'm not a confetti cannon kind of guy.
You don't have to be.
Yeah.
The world
The world
needs
likes
to
it.
celebrate.
Hey, I understand. I was talking to Jimmy about that this morning. He was doing an interview with me this morning before you ever showed up, but he was talking about
Mind you, it's still 7-something right now. I just want to say it's not even 8 a.m.
So
Before I showed up was probably 5:45.
So anyhow, we're doing this interview, and he talked about celebrating things, and it was a leadership interview, and so we like to celebrate a lot of things. We like to celebrate the small wins, like to celebrate things, but we don't want celebrations to get out of hand. We want them to be often and stuff. But a state championship is a big deal.
Yeah.
First time in 13 years for Mangum, which is really weird because, all 4 years of Cooper being in high school, they went to Sulphur, so they've made it to at least the semifinals of the state 4 years in a row. It might have been before that, I can't remember. But anyhow, and this year finally got to win it. Yeah.
Yep. And you've been so close in so many sports. And so it's to finally be able to cross that boundary. Big deal. Real big deal.
It's a big deal, and the part that I enjoy the most of is that the 7 seniors, or actually there's 10 seniors, but 7 of them were stars. Those are boys that I have coached, the whole entire time.
I did not realize you were graduating 7
Well, so it's Jamal.
of the starters. I did not know that.
Oh yeah. So everybody besides Cade and Colby.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So if you take,
You've got some good young men though coming up. It's not going to be a complete.
they're 8th graders.
It's not going to be a complete rebuild though.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was that big of a gap between
Cooper and I looked at it yesterday, and because a couple of them had transferred out, so you got Braxton and that other blonde-headed kid. His dad helped coach 8th grade. He plays for SCCS now. I just lost his name, but anyhow.
Did somebody come from Mangum besides Braxton?
Yeah.
I don't.
And so.
I don't even know who it would be.
Yeah, I do. I just can't remember his name right now. But anyhow, so those two would have been, right there. They would have both been starting next year. And so we're looking at, I would say it's either 3 or 4 freshmen will start next year. Yep. And so it's, they're going to have a rebuild.
Well, FCCS's team has been relatively young for the last several years, even this year. We've always had some seniors, but as far as seniors that actually start, it's never been the majority. This next year and the year after that will be the 2 years where we are upperclassmen heavy, and so just because they're going to be. I did not know he was from Mangum.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that. Yeah, that's news to me.
Yeah, Caden Burr.
Okay. Well, I thought he's been at FCCS forever. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Because he was a freshman last year and he was already there.
Right,
So,
and he might have been before, but I know his 8th grade year, his dad helped coach and
I did not
for a
know
couple
that.
of years
yeah,
there.
So
Yeah.
I like Sam.
Yeah.
Sam's a good man. But
Well, you put him in Braxton, then you might not start
Not-
with
yeah,
one or
not
2
as
freshmen.
bad. Yeah,
It's
I
not as
gotcha.
bad. So that was that kind of middle group right there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, yeah. Well, just because you got some younger guys coming up doesn't necessarily mean that you can't have a successful team. We've had successful teams, and I think at 2, if it's 5A, it'd be a little different because there's a lot more depth on the rosters. But at 2A, I think that y'all still have a reasonable chance to compete, and so.
Yeah, I mean the boy that the Davis kid that threw for Josh and them yesterday at Claiborne Christian, he's a sophomore. The guy that we faced first yesterday at Welch was a freshman.
Yeah.
Of course, it was too big for him, but Colby, who closed it out, was a sophomore. So yeah, you can win with some younger kids and stuff. But those those 10 seniors are the group that I've always coached. In fact, that if you took the 9 starters.
Mm-hmm.
That was the group that we took to the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
That same as that group. Colby was younger, but we needed to replace somebody, and so Colby jumped up and played on that team for us.
Yeah.
So that's the team that we got second in the state when they were 14. We got second in the state when they were 15, and got third in the World Series. And I was head coach in that team, and so that was that same group of boys. In fact, the same exact team. Just add 3 or 4 or 5 more players to it. But as far as every boy that started for Mangum yesterday was on those teams that we coached.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's the reason why it's special.
Yeah, no, it's a big deal, man.
Yeah.
I'm super excited for the boys. It's especially cool, with the connection that you have with them, since they were very, very young, things like that. And, I've only got to really know a few of those boys over the last few years, and I'm stoked for them. So I can't imagine how you're feeling
Well,
in
the
that
other
situation.
side of it is none of them are playing baseball after this.
None of them?
I
didn't know
none of the 7 seniors.
that
Unless
was
Blake ends up playing somewhere or
was
whatever.
unaware.
Blake's got some calls and stuff. I don't really think he will. He's got some
Sure.
calls that I think he'll end up turning down.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, none of them are going.
Yeah.
Colby will go play ball one day. Reggie's going to play football for Northwestern.
Mm-hmm.
Reggie's good enough. Reggie could play, but he's going to play football for Northwestern. But yeah, none of them's going to play baseball again.
How about that?
Yep.
How about that? Well, it's a good way to go out. If you're going to play your last game, winning the state championship your senior year is a good
Well,
a
and
good
they got to
final
do
feather in
that
the hat.
in football and baseball. They played their very last game in the Dome
Mm-hmm.
in the championship game. Come up a little short, but only one team doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So they did that. So they played 4 or 5 weeks longer than most kids did as
Yeah.
seniors, and the same thing in baseball. And so
Yeah.
they played as many games as you could possibly play.
Yeah.
In football and baseball their senior year. So there's something to be said for that.
Who beat them in football? I cannot remember.
It's a Haynesville.
Haynesville.
Yep.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
right.
who's beat a lot of people. In
Yeah,
football.
yeah. No, I remember how good a game it was too. It looked like at one point it looked like y'all were gonna.
So Mangum dominated the stats and
Yeah.
lost the game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, well, that's sports sometimes, man. But all in all, congratulations to Mangum.
Good time.
FCCS ended up losing in the semifinals while we were down there to the team that would eventually win the state championship. I say eventually; it was the next game. But the Glenmora Wildcats, and it's just a team that executes, man. I would say if you win athlete for athlete, we've got a better collection of players. But man, did that team execute well. And their pitchers hit their spots. They commanded the zone. They're very well coached. They could bunt. They ran well. They played great defense. You could tell that there's been a lot of work poured into the kids at Glenmora. And if you're gonna have a team win, because I would say, in my opinion, the last several times that FCCS has lost out, it was games that you think about all the ways it could have went different. Not that game. Mm-hmm. They just outplayed us, and there's nothing to think about. They executed perfectly. Like, you don't go home thinking about all the what ifs and because there are no what ifs. They just played the game the right way, and they got you. And so, as much as that stinks, at least you can sleep a little.
Yeah.
I've told people my whole life I'd rather get blown out than lose by a run, because you get blown out and you don't have all the questions. You lose, you barely lose, and you got all of the things in your mind of what you could have done. And the deal was they were just a better team that day. They were prepared better, and we'll see what we can do to turn that around. And You know, I honestly, that's kind of what I want to talk today about, not just from a sports perspective, but from a life perspective.
Before we
Good.
end the baseball part of the podcast, I do want to say that congratulations to Fresh Start and Thrive Church's own Josh Ootman. He head coaching at Claiborne Christian. He's 23 years old. You know, him and Elena went to school together and their whole lives and everything. And he got offered the job at Claiborne Christian last year. A lot of people thought that it was premature. He was too young. Hasn't, assistant coached a lot, and stuff. But he's not an assistant coach. He's a head coach, and they gave him the job. And to be honest, they struggled last year, and it wasn't because of him. It was because of the kids just not buying in. It's a small school that doesn't have a ton of kids to choose from, and some of the kids were choosing to play basketball instead of working on baseball, and they were just had their mind other places and stuff, and he had to play a lot of young kids, and is still playing a ton of young kids. But the difference is they've bought in this year, and they believe in what he's selling. They've worked hard, and I was able to watch that game, the championship game yesterday, and he coached in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, he coached. There was, in the championship games and stuff, they run 4-man umpiring crews and stuff. And there was a lot of challenges. There was a lot of challenging calls. There was a lot of had to handle things the correct way. And he handled things a lot better than the other coach did. And his team came out on top, and I think they won by a lot, right?
Yeah,
Wasn't it like 8-0 or something like that? And but it was never, one of those things that was, game was out. I mean, they just played good baseball and did a good job. He had his guy on the mound. He managed that real good the day before and made sure that when his stud closed at the end of the game that he was under the pitch count. And he just did everything the right way. So, hey, hats off to Josh Ootman and Claiborne Christian Crusaders, and did a great job.
Yeah, obviously I don't want to take anything away from those boys, and I know that you're not either. The boys played fantastic, but I watched the semifinal game as well, and they don't win that game if Josh isn't coaching. You have a different coach, you lose that game. I'm not taking anything from the boys, and Josh would never say that the record. If anybody's listening to this from Claiborne, Josh would never say that.
Right.
But I know baseball like the back of my hand. You lose that game if Josh isn't coaching it. The way that he maneuvered to get the runs that they got. And they got some hits at the right times too. But you don't have those opportunities if Josh doesn't coach well and create those opportunities. And it was very, very impressive. I was extremely proud of him, and I've been talking to him a good bit. I know you have too over the last couple of days. And he's very, very excited, but he's also very humbled by the whole experience. And so, yeah, couldn't happen to a better guy. And an OCS one as well.
They do.
We've got some connections over there. A couple of friends and their kids are playing over there. And so it was a lot of celebrating that we got to do yesterday for people that we care about. And I hope that keeps happening.
Yeah, all the ride home yesterday, I was calling my friends at OCS and Josh and different ones. It's like, hey, walk me through it, and everything. And so tell me how it happened and everything. So yeah, it was a good celebration. Good to see a lot of people there supporting those kids that we love and care about.
No, that's right.
So sorry, lead back in.
No, you're all good. So this is the whole deal, and so with FCCS having come up just short again, which if you're not familiar with FCCS, here's the run of the last 4 years. So this year they lost in the semifinals, which means they were 2 wins away from winning the state championship. The 3 years prior, they lost the state championship game, so they were 1 win short. This close to winning 4 state championships. Instead, you have 0.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes in life, we also find ourselves stuck in places like this. I've seen it happen to countless people. Maybe you're doing most of the things right, but there's something that's keeping you from walking in everything that God has for you. And I'm not saying God has called them to win the state championship, but you understand there's something that's got you just short of what your maximum potential is. And at times, those things can be hard to identify. It could be any number of things. And so what do we do in moments in our life where it seems like things are going well, but you just can't get over the hump? There just seems to always be something that we run into. And for me, the way that I define it is a hard reset. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just have to have a hard reset. Look, I'll tell you what, before I kind of jump into that, what do you have any opening thoughts on that?
Yeah, so like I said, it's the first time I've heard this, but my first initial question is I'm going to try to identify if this is in my control or if it's not in my control. That's the first thing that I'm going to identify is hey, I understand that we're achieving at a high level, but we desire to achieve at a higher level. Now, is that us or is that God? Right. That's something that we want to look at is, well, does he want us to achieve at a higher level, or is that just us wanting to achieve at a higher level? And then what is the motivation behind it? And then, is this something I can control?
Yeah.
Because if it's out of my control, first off, if it's just something I desire and it's not something that God desires, then I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, because, you're talking about a championship.
Right.
That's not, God's not desiring for us to win and somebody else to lose or whatever. Sure, yeah. And so it doesn't mean it's a bad thing at all. But I'm not going to be willing to put all of my effort into something that isn't God's ultimate desire.
Sure.
You see what I'm saying? And
100%.
so I'm gonna look at that, cost effective wise, and
there are kingdom things and then there are personal things.
Right. And then I'm gonna decide, is it in my control? I probably said this before, but when I got ready to take my LAC licensed addiction counselor test, I was doing that to benefit Fresh Start. So I was doing it to benefit the kingdom of God. And so I knew that one day it would also benefit me and my family. But there's other ways to benefit me and my family. Yep. The other ways are a lot easier than what all we went through to benefit me and my family financially and security-wise and stuff like that. And so, but I knew that it was the way to benefit Fresh Start to the greatest degree, and it was all falling on me. So all of the pressure, nobody else could take the test. Nobody else could do it. Nobody else had the background, it would have took them 10 years, And so for me, all of the pressure is coming on me to be able to do this. I'm the only one that can do it. It is what God wants done. And he has called me to do it. And this is what we're supposed to do. Now, so we know all that. But then we had to make a decision then. How much effort are we going to give this? Right. Well, God called you to it. You should give it all your effort. No, God also called me to be a dad. He also called me to be a husband. He also called me to run the day-to-day of Fresh Start. And he's not telling me to put any of that on hold. Right. He didn't tell me to go to the desert like Aaron Rodgers or whatever and smoke dope and all that stuff. He told me that, hey, in addition to everything that we're doing, this is what we're doing. And so and for me, I didn't pass the test the first time. I went and took it and realized it was totally different than what I thought it was, and, had to go reset and figure it out, and figure out how to do it. And there was no study material. And so all this is falling on me. And so in those instances, hey, I know what to do. I know how I would handle it. I know what I would do. And like you said, a hard reset is what I had to do. But then there's other times where it's just out of our control. And if we're just trying to, hit it up against the wall right there, then we're messing up on this other stuff that we have. So I think that in these instances, the very first thing I would say is, number one, decide, is this a personal thing or is it God? And number two, is it worth it? And then number three, is it even in your control? So that's the first things I would look at.
Yeah, I think those are excellent points. That not even I don't want to say things I didn't consider, not things I considered talking about.
Right.
Absolutely things to consider, but not things I consider talking about. But I know people who've put their all into being really good at Candy Crush.
Right.
And that's really stupid.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, ignore your family and your children so that you could be the best Candy Crush player that ever lived. And it's like, not a good call. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, yeah, there's not always, not everything is worth chasing after. You know what I mean? I enjoy pickleball. I'm a decent hand at pickleball. I don't play very often, but I think that if I would really commit myself, I could be an excellent pickleball player. Mm-hmm. However, it's not worth my time. Right. I'm completely content being the level of pickleball player that I am right now because God is not concerned with my level of pickleball skill. I'd love to be a better golfer. I give golf all the attention that I can afford to give it, no more. Yeah. You know what I mean? I could be a much better golfer. It doesn't matter, though. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so there's lots of things in life to consider. Now, I spent a lot of time crafting communication. I spent a lot of time studying it. Still do. Mm-hmm. Why? Because that matters. Mm-hmm. It's different.
Every day.
Yeah. I use it every day.
Every day.
Whether I'm preaching or I'm counseling or I'm just being a friend
Yeah.
or I'm navigating difficult conversations and situations with people, every single day, communication impacts the kingdom. And how well or how poorly I do it impacts the kingdom. So every second that I spend, worthwhile. And there are times where I will take some time away from my family to better my communication. Why? Because this isn't a selfish thing. This is a kingdom thing, and it's necessary at times to make some of those sacrifices. And so,
and God honors that.
100%. 100%. Yeah, God's not up there saying, "Man, Andrew, you should be at the house right now." No. Like God loves me. God loves my family. God wants me to love my family. But God does not expect me to sacrifice the kingdom on the altar of my family. No. And that's I don't even want to call it a balance. It is God, and then it is your family. Amen. And it has to be that way. Amen. It has to be that way. And if it's not, your marriage will fail, and you'll be a bad father. I'm just throwing, you know what I mean? Like you don't have to like the way that went down, but it went down the way that it's supposed to. And I've messed that up before. Yeah. Thinking that I was doing the right thing.
So you know. And
it fails. I'm just telling you, it will fail. And so, anyways, so my mindset, my hard reset, because I talk about it fairly often. I'm constantly turning knobs in my life. Now, when you're making adjustments, this is what I always tell people. I said, make one adjustment at a time. Don't try to change everything all at once, because then you don't really know what was responsible for the change. Maybe you get a different result, but if you changed 8 things, it could be any one of those 8 things. The other thing I tell them is don't make a huge turn of the knob, because you can't fine-tune anything like that, you know. If the volume in your truck is at 25 and it's too loud, don't drop it to 7. You're gonna back it up, 2, 3, just to see, you know what I mean? It's small adjustments to find the right thing. You make these big, wide swings either direction, things typically go bad. You end up with a whole lot more error before you find a solution.
I will say this, just using that analogy right there, a better way of finding your volume is to start small and go to where you find the right volume in the loudness. If you start all the way loud, and back down, you'll end up louder than what you were if you would start smaller and go up. And the louder that you are, the more it can affect your ears and that kind of stuff. So if you'll just, from a musician standpoint, if you'll start lower and go up to higher to where it's good, then that's better than starting way too loud and backing it down, because your ears are getting accustomed to the way too loud, even though it's way too loud, and you'll end up at a higher volume. So anyhow. That's good. Sorry. So I mean, just like in life, start and like warm on up when you're working out.
I've never heard anybody say that before.
I've never said it before.
But as soon as you were explaining it, my mind was running through how this applies spiritually.
Right.
I got a whole message that I just
workout wise too
in 10 seconds.
Yep.
You know? The noise,
so that's spiritually
the noise you allow around you while you're making decisions. You
Yes.
get used to all these voices. You're trying to appease all these voices, so you allow a whole lot more in than is necessary. Or
or taking on way too much ministry right off the bat, and then having to back off of it.
Oh, yeah.
And, and a better way is to be faithful in the little things and let God add more. But that's not what you're doing. What you're doing is you're adding the max, and then you're backing off of it because it's too much, and it's still too much. Whereas if you'll be faithful with little things and let God add more, you'll have the right amount at the right time.
Right.
There we go. Hey, that's a sermon right there.
Good. Yeah.
Sorry.
And so my whole life is making small touches to knobs, and I'm always doing it, even when things are going well, even when I succeed. Operation Family Freedom is going great. I'm touching knobs, trying to see how we can grow, how can things be better, how can we have more accountability, how can we have more financials, like what all can we do to impact the kingdom? How do I get out of Pakistan exclusively? What in the States would bring the same level of passion from the people and the donors here? How could I work in multiple countries? Is there another country that we could, start doing something? Just small turns, little things, over and over and over. But sometimes you make these small turns over and over, and it seems like you're not getting different results. And you've kind of tried everything individually that you can think to do. I turned this knob, it didn't work, I reset it, and then I turned the next knob, that didn't work, I reset it. Sometimes you just gotta pull the plug all together. You gotta recalibrate, you gotta reload, and you gotta approach the whole situation with a fresh set of eyes and a fresh perspective. And I don't do that very often. It's very rare, and it's only when something's very important. Only when something's very important. But I've seen so many people. I've been in this position myself in life where it seems like everything's going so well, but there's one little loop I keep finding myself stuck in, and I can't figure out how to not allow myself to keep ending up in this same position, because I'm not intentionally putting myself there, but it seems like I keep ending up there anyways. Sometimes you just got to pull the plug and reset everything, reapproach everything. And at that point, when you do a hard reset, it's got to be all the way. Sometimes people do a hard reset, or they call it a hard reset, but it's not. And here's what I mean. It means you make a lot of big changes, but you still keep the core of it the same. That's not a reset.
Right.
That's not a reset. It may be that you need to change everything about your life. Your job, your location, you need to delete your Facebook, you need to throw your phone in the ocean, and you know what I mean? Yeah. You need to move to another state, now that's rare. Those are such rare situations. And sometimes people want a hard reset every time something goes wrong, and they never end up going anywhere. How many times have we talked to people that moved locations and the trouble followed them? It's like, well, because you were always the trouble. You know what I mean? It's like you didn't actually do a hard reset. You just moved, but you kept the same hardware and just took it to a new town. You know what I mean? You got the same laptop in a new apartment. You got to get rid of all of it if you're going to get rid of it. And so I found myself stuck in these kind of loops before, and sometimes, man, you just got to take a step back. You got to reevaluate everything all at once. Say, hey, look, I've tried making micro adjustments. I don't feel like I'm getting any better, which, by the way, this doesn't have to happen when you're doing bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can be doing well, but just not what you feel like God's calling you to do. Sometimes you just need to take a step back and reassess everything. How am I spending my time? What does my schedule look like? Why do I feel overwhelmed? Why, whatever it is. It's different for different people at different times, but sometimes you got to take a step back, reevaluate the whole thing, write it all down. It needs to be meticulous. A hard reset's not something you do in an hour. You don't just throw everything away and move. It's got to be carefully thought out. You got to spend time. You need to seek counsel. Mm-hmm. You need people pouring into you that you trust, giving you solid advice. You need to consult the Lord. You need to spend time listening to see if he will give you some direction. This isn't something we just do on a whim. Right. A hard reset is an extremely meticulous work. Which is the reason it works if you do it that way. It does not work if you just abruptly rip a plug out of a wall and plug it right back in. It just doesn't work. And so the whole reason this was on my mind is because, for FCCS, I was talking to Cody, they're going to have to do a hard reset. Mm-hmm. They keep getting close They've turned some knobs. I say they. I'm not. I've also, turned some knobs with them.
Right.
And turning the knobs has not gotten us any closer.
Right.
We're as close as we can get without doing the whole thing. They're going to have to do a hard reset. They're going to have to take a step back and reevaluate everything. And I think that if that's done well, and I think it will be, I think that they got a real shot to turn a corner. But that's just a baseball team.
Right.
But there are a lot of people that I know, that I talk to every day, that are stuck in these same loops, these cycles of sin or whatever it is that they just find themselves stuck in. It's like, man, I just can't get out of it. I've let go of all these things, but this thing's got me bound up. It's like, man, it sounds like you might need a hard reset. I've tried this, I've tried that, I've put these protections, I got this accountability, and it seems like I'm just fine. You might just need a hard reset, brother. You might need to re-look at the way that you do everything, how you spend your time, and what you allow yourself access to.
Right.
And nobody likes to take freedom away from themselves, but if you have to have those freedoms to feel comfortable, and those freedoms are pushing you away from the Lord, well, it's not actually freedom, that's a slavery. You've put yourself in bondage to something. And so consider what you've got yourself in bondage to. What is the thing that you won't let go of that's ultimately allowing space for these things to repeat in your life? And for a lot of people, it's their cell phone.
Yeah.
Most everybody's problems that I talk to, whether it's, hidden addictions of things that they're looking at, whether it's people that they're talking to that they ought not be talking to, old contacts, they keep reattaching to their old life. It's like, you can get rid of a lot of that if you throw that iPhone in the ocean and get you a flip phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't carry over your contacts. Time to move on. You just need a hard reset on some things. And it's what are you willing to let go of to finally get what has been eluding you? And if my opinion has always been, if you're not willing to let go of those things, it's because you don't really want the thing that you say you want. You could tell somebody like, hey, look, man, I want to get in shape. I'm going to do it. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, as long as I can still eat the same amount of fudge rounds that I currently eat. Anything else that was on the table. And it's like, all you just told me is that you really don't want to get in shape. You're like, I hear what you're saying, but it's like when somebody says they believe in the Lord, but their life has no reflection of it. It's
Right.
like, you don't believe in the Lord. I'm just telling you. I'm not trying to be ugly. I'm not trying to get people to question their salvation. I'm just saying the way that you live is evidence of what you believe. What you say is not evidence of anything. Look at a politician. Most politicians, they say whatever to get wherever, but what they actually do
That's what matters.
is what they actually believe. And so at the end of the day, man, I think a hard reset is, though rare and should be very carefully considered and meticulously done, it is at times necessary. And so if you feel like you're stuck in a loop or something like that, and you feel like you need to do a hard reset, don't just do it on your own. Talk to somebody. This is not something you do without wise counsel. And so go talk to the people that you love, the people that you trust. Explain to them the situation. Tell them you're wanting to do a hard reset on your life, and let them give you kind of counsel on what their opinion. You don't have to take every opinion of every person, but I would definitely hear the opinions of the people that you love and trust a lot.
Amen. My thoughts there is, first off, I love turning the knobs. I love just trying to make things better. Small adjustments for big impacts. I love it. I don't like the hard resets at all, and they should only be when they have to be. And I don't think it's something that you're supposed to like. I think it's something you're only supposed to use when you have to. But I will say this. When you're making the small adjustments and stuff, let's say that you're making the small adjustments and it's just not quite working. It's just not quite working, and you're into it and you're willing to do whatever. You're just phone a friend. Let somebody else come look at it. Just like in this topic, in this conversation, the way I answered the question was totally different than the way Andrew was going to answer the question.
Right.
not because one way is right or wrong. I just looked at it from a different perspective. I mean, we didn't, we agreed the same thing. He just had different topics that he would have talked about there, and I had different ones because I'm going to analyze, hey, do we even need to do this? And he's already gotten past that to look at. And so it's just another perspective, another fresh set of eyes. Now when I say let somebody else in, I don't mean just somebody. I mean the right person who God's told you, because they may be able to see just one little thing. I mean, I know you've worked hard at this, and this is your baby, and it's your project, and it's maybe your life or whatever it is, but that doesn't mean that the right person can't come in and give you the one little piece that you need to move forward in life. And I've had that happen a lot in my life, to where I'm just dedicated to something you would not think that anybody else could even do it. I mean, kind of like the LAC deal, but then all of a sudden, if I allow it, I can have the right person speak one little thing to me. Let me just say this. When I was studying for the LAC and stuff, and I couldn't find anybody to help, and I couldn't find study guides. I mean, you could find it for the lower level test, but you couldn't find it for this test and everything. And all of a sudden, I found a study guide for a different test in a different state that was comparable. Mm-hmm. And I went to that seminar, or downloaded it, listened, and he said one thing that I was able to grasp out of that. And it was one thing, and it changed the way that I took the entire test.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, kind of a version of a tweak and a hard reset at one time. He said one thing that changed how I even read the questions, and it was the deal breaker. It was what helped me, So now they couldn't help me with everything because they're taking a different test in a different state. It was just one thing he said. And so allow people to help you with something, even if you know more than me and you understand all that. Hey, they may be able to speak the one thing. But on the hard reset side, if you get to the point of where Andrew was, where you know what you need to do in order to accomplish this, you know what you need to get rid of, you know what you need to do more of, what if you can get to the point to where you know what needs to happen, then that's just on you, babe.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's just on you. If you know what the struggle is that keeps causing you to fall short, mm-hmm. and you just decide to not take care of that, that's on you.
Right.
I mean, there ain't no whole lot to even talk about with that to me, because if you get to the point where you know what you got to do, or what you need to add more of or get rid of in order to accomplish the goal, then you just got to decide if that goal is worth accomplishing or not.
Right.
I mean, that's all it is. I mean, to me, that's something inside of you that you got to decide. I mean, yesterday, and I know we're on a baseball podcast, so we'll go back to it, but yesterday we're playing this Welsh team. And I mean, we got on them. We were on them, 1-0, and then 4-0. And then when we were on them 4-0, I text in our Ruskell's family group chat. I said, we're fisting to jump on them. Mm-hmm. I mean, 10 seconds later, it's 5, and then another 30 seconds, it's 6. Next thing you know, it's 8-0. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting right behind home plate, and their fans are right beside me. And they never quit cheering. They never. I mean, they were way louder than we were.
Yeah.
They had 4 times more fans than we did, and they never quit. I mean, they kept going. They had this, and the next thing you know, in the 5th inning, their team scores a run, and their players, you would have thought they just tied the ball game.
Dude, honestly, because I was there as well. I couldn't understand.
Me either.
Like when they scored, it was 8-1. And the fans on the other side just started freaking out. It was like they were watching a different game.
And the players did too.
Yeah.
And the whole time I'm thinking, because I kept saying, because they were really, really loud. And I enjoyed their cheers. I mean, they were doing great. They were giving it to Mangum. I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. It's the horns that were, I felt like I could still hear right now. They were getting me at inopportune times. But I was thinking, we get this lead on them, that's going to quit all that.
Right.
But it didn't.
It did not.
It didn't. And then and so now I see why their fans were cheering like that, because their baseball team doesn't quit. Mm-hmm. And it pains me to say this, but the team that they look the most like is Oak Grove. Oak Grove doesn't quit.
Right.
They get down in almost every game they ever play.
Yeah.
And they come back and they end up most of the time winning comfortably, even though they get down, and it's because they don't quit. And so I'm sitting there watching, and we've had some Mangum teams like that. I'm not saying that we haven't. But if I was to choose a team that resembled those remarks, it would be Oak Grove over the years, whether it's baseball, football, or whatever it is. Well, this Welsh team was exactly the same. And this wasn't new for them, because their fans wouldn't be doing that if they hadn't seen them do this time and time again. And next thing you know, they did come back, you know, and we had to score more runs and stuff. And so what I'm saying is they had that grit. Yeah. They had that determination. They had that don't stop mentality. And if you got something that you need a breakthrough and you need to go hit something, and if you can identify what the one thing is that's holding you back, then you just got to decide if you got it or not. Mm-hmm. I mean, you just got to decide, do I want this bad enough to accomplish this goal? And that's up to you.
100%, dude. 100%. And, you know, what's crazy is that because I watched Welsh last year in the semis. They were in the state championship last year as well. They lost to Oak Grove, actually, in the state championship. And some people were asking me because they knew I was at the games last year. I watched Welsh play both times. Now, I didn't know how many kids had graduated. I didn't know how similar the team was, but I did watch them. And I remember telling Blake before they played them, he's like, what you know about them? I said, they're scrappy, dude. I said, they're scrappy. He was like, what you mean? I said, I mean, they're going to score until the game's over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like they're
not going to quit.
They just play. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how they're going to score. They don't have like a consistent anything, but the game just isn't over until it's over. And then I'm watching the game and it gets 8-0. And my mind just kind of lets go of that. It's like, well, I think this one's done, you know? And then sure enough, just as advertised, they start reeling their way back into this game. And so even though they lost, I was very impressed by their team. Very impressed by their team. And it was cool. It was cool to watch. And so, you know, would people describe you that way? You know, are you somebody who doesn't quit? Are you somebody who gets down and scraps your way back in? Or are you somebody who gets down and dies?
Yeah. You get hit in the mouth. You know, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You know, how do you overcome adversity? Mm-hmm. How do you deal with stuff when things just don't go your way and they keep not going your way, and you're doing what you know to do, but it isn't working.
What you know is getting you hit more.
Right. And it's like, you know, how are you going to handle this? And look, we can learn a lot in that, and that's kind of where I'm at is, okay, why are we doing a hard reset? You know, and that's the first question I got is, you know, on this whole deal is, you know, why isn't making it to the championship game good enough? You know, why isn't making it to Sulphur good enough? Why isn't it, you know, isn't reaching this level of success? Why isn't it good enough? And so that's what we got to look at first is, you know, is this our only goal? Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, you know, are we doing good at this and we're doing really good in these other areas? Or is this the only goal? You know, so how much are we willing to sell out for this one thing? And that's something that we had to look at in life. When I took that LAC test, even though I knew it was God, even though I knew He wanted to do it, I also knew that He didn't want me just to lay everything else down. Mm-hmm. You know, He wanted me to pass the test. Now, a 70 is passing. I think that I'm intelligent enough to make a 90. Mm-hmm. But what did I have to lose in order to get the 90?
Right.
Now, I was willing to lose anything of myself, but what I wasn't willing to lose is all the things that God wanted me to do in addition.
Right.
You know, be the husband, be the wife, run Fresh Start, do the ministry, be the associate pastor, do all those kind of things. And I wasn't, you know, I didn't think that God wanted me to lay all that down just so I could say I made a 90.
Yeah.
You get the same license with a 70 or with a 90. And so we had to be willing. And so we had to look at, you know, is being good at baseball good enough? Or, Cody Maroney, he's the head coach. Of course he wants to win the whole thing. I mean, that's what he's paid to do, know, and everything. And I understand that. But in life, you're trying to accomplish more than just one thing most of the time.
Sure.
And so where are we trying to get to? Where would God want us to get to, and at what cost? But if you narrow it down and there's one thing that's holding you back, whatever it is, whether it's an addiction or a habit or just not trying hard enough in that area, if you can ever narrow it down, if I can ever narrow it down, we're going to get it did.
Yeah.
And if you don't, that's on you, Bubba.
And I think that one of the big problems is that, people get in their mind that they deserve to experience certain things. And one, just a quick reminder, God doesn't owe you anything. Two, not everything is for everybody. And three, getting something the wrong way is not the same as getting it God's way.
Amen.
Those things feel totally different. Anybody can be married, but having a God-centered marriage is a whole different thing.
Amen.
Lots of you have been married and it sucked.
Right.
There's a big difference between being married and being in a good relationship and being in a relationship.
Hey, Mr. Terry, you can come on in if you want to. That's Mr. Terry Poland, and he's made an appearance on
Thursday,
Jesus
isn't
Cartel
it?
before, but yes, he didn't want to today.
But yeah, there's a big difference in being married and being married the way that God intended you to be married. It just is, and it's massive. And so, a lot of people I hear, man, I do so well until I get in a relationship. And it seems like every time I get in a relationship, I fall back off, and it's like, here's an idea. Maybe stop getting in a relationship. And they're like, well, I want to be married. I want to have kids. Like, I understand what you want, but what is it getting you right now? You're trying to get something not the way that God's called you to get it, and it's leading you to a place God doesn't want you to be. And so why don't you push the brakes on that? Why don't you focus on being with Him and let Him work the rest of that out instead of you trying to work it out? Because every time you try to work it out, you end up in rehab or prison.
And you're the one that told us this.
Right. Yeah. This is you.
We get this information from you.
Right. And so, anyways, that's
But
me
how
for
many
the day.
times has somebody told you that? It's like, man, every time I do this, this is what happens. You're like, well, why you did it? Because this is what I want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
then this is what you got.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it for me, man. You got anything else?
Love y'all.